Thank you very much. Welcome to the Town Rocky Mountain House, January 16th, 2024, the regular council meeting, and I'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. The Town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. Next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Unfortunately, our delegation scheduled for 4.1 had to cancel, so we'll have to have a motion to remove that and adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any other changes to the agenda today? Councillor Phillips?
If there's no further changes to the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So 5.1, adoption of previous minutes. Is any changes or issues with last week's, or sorry, the council meeting minutes of December 19th? Councillor Chappelle.
Also move those minutes as circulated, or accept the minutes as circulated.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So because we do not have a delegation, we do not have any delegation business, so we're going on to old business today. And it's the RFD for the Rocky Mountain House Citizen of the Year Awards Policy 7.1. And Mr. Kraus, thank you, that's perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So council reviewed the policy at the last Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. We asked the administration to do amendments to it. Those have been done, and the policy is being presented for council's consideration.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or changes on the amended version? For the special messages and greetings, are we keeping that in now then? Yeah, because I know there was some discussion last time about it. I like that we've narrowed it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the Martha Koscheck. That seems a little bit more sustainable. Then we have anything else to add? Councillor Caprero.
I'll go ahead and make a motion then. Be it resolved that council repeal policy 011/2008 and approve Town of Rocky Mountain House Citizen of the Year Awards policy 001/2024.
Thank you very much, Councillor Caprero. And so, sorry, Deputy Mayor. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So our next order of business this morning is the RFD for the CAO evaluation. And so this is just to determine how we're going to proceed with the evaluation this year. Mr. Kraus, should I just keep going then? Sure. Okay, yeah. So there was two options, option A and option B. So option A is we did the firm last year with 6 participants, and the CAO estimated budget is $3,200 to $4,200. And option B would be between 38 and 48. And the last alternative is the way we did it 2 years ago with the Director of Corporate Services coordinate and organize evaluation and documentation for council. So it's kind of like what we did 2 years ago. So does anybody have any comments about these? Councillor Chappelle, Councillor Phillips? It didn't go on. There you go.
Good morning, Your Worship, if I could. I would like to look at option A, understanding how busy that our Director of Operation or Director is, and if there's any contentious issues, it takes her out of that mix, should there be. Hopefully there's not, but if there is, Option A gives us a space then to have open dialogue with a third party regarding that, and then they can frame any comments accordingly to how they feel they should be presented. So my preference would be option A, that we just do it with council and not involve staff this year. It's the cheapest route, and it doesn't put staff in the middle of anything and doesn't consume their time as much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. I also agree that option A looks like the best option that we have. Last year, we did the 360 with the entire, the organization and the directors and council as well. I think maybe that's something that can be done every second year, but I think for this year, just doing option A would be the best use of our resources. And as Councillor Schifelt says, it removes our Director of Corporate Services out of the equation.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments or different alternatives? I only had one question. My question was, do we already have that money set aside in our budget to do that? I know we did the year before because we didn't go to service level review, so we used that money the year before, but did it get put in our budget at budget time?
Mayor, I have to verify that.
Oh,
I'll have
okay.
to check with Ms. Quinlan on that one.
Okay, okay. Because then we'd have to make also a resolution to put money into the budget if it's,
I'm 99% confident Ms. Quinlan would have accommodated this in the budget. So.
okay, okay.
I will then move ahead and make a motion that we proceed forward with the CAO review using option A as the method that we do that with.
Thank you very much for your motion. And because it's already in the budget, I don't think we need to make a motion for the budget money. And so if there's no further discussion from any council members, then we'll proceed forward. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda today is 8.1, new business, a business open house from Councillor Chappelle. You have a notice of motion.
It's too early in the morning. Your worship, my notice of motion was to involve the different parties, or like Chamber of Commerce of town and the County of Clearwater, in a hosting a business open house to see if they have any ideas, or if we can let them know of what we have in our community, what we offer, the new bylaws and policies we put into place, and just see if we can spur any development from within our community. So my notice of motion was that we proceed with that to try to get more involvement out of our business leaders in both the town and the county.
Thank you very much. And so, just with that being said, with your notice of motion, did you have a concept of, like, would we do the community center? Like, do you want to give a little bit more information about sort of your vision for that?
Your worship, sorry, your worship, attached to the document is the stuff from our strategic plan. And Mr. Kraus may have something to add as to why we have that there. I'm not sure if it's just to support moving ahead with a program where we talk to our business people, or what that's about. So just a bit of clarity as to that addition in the agenda package. So that would be my only thing.
So, yeah, your worship, we just added it for council, for information. Those are in council's strategic plans, and that's the actions that we're working on right now. So, it's just information.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a good initiative to go forward with. It's no different than the tourism workshops that we have, and we invite tourism operators to come in and give feedback. I think this is a good way to get our business community to give us feedback, and to showcase our new off-site levies initiative, our tax incentive initiative. It just gives us a venue to be able to get this information out, and then to hear what our business community says and what they need, and how we can best support them and assist them. I think this is a good idea.
Okay. I love the idea. Does anybody else? Oh, Counselor Ald, yes.
I was just gonna agree with Councilor Shipley and Phillips. I think it's a great idea to get the businesses in one location and have their opinions and have an open forum for discussion. Have it a positive meeting and see where we can grow with their visions in mind as well. So I fully support that motion.
So do you have any further ideas moving forward about like advertising and,
I think we need to take it to our friends in the county to see if they'd be in favor. So the first thing would be to go that route. And then if they're in favor, go from there. My inclination would be to use a third party, somebody who can draw and allow people to speak where we can hear and listen, and all the details are heard. So I think that our first step here is to take it to the county at a
ICC?
ICC meeting. So I guess if I was to make a motion, that's what it would be, was to take this, the next step to the county to see if they will participate in this program. And if there's a cost involved, it'd be a shared cost.
Sounds fair. Is there any other discussion on this item? I think, Counselor Shipple, would you like to make the motion?
I'm not sure what the motion looks like, but I'm assuming it would look such as if we would.
Your light didn't turn on again, sorry.
Are you in the morning?
I can make the motion if you prefer.
Sure, if you would. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, so I make a motion that we contact the council for the County of Clearwater and see if they would be willing to partner to have a business open house together with us and the Chamber of Commerce. And then they can come back to us. So does that have to be an ICC, Mr. Kraus, or could it just be like a letter and they could talk to about a council meeting? Because I don't know when the next ICC meeting would come up.
That's entirely up to council. They could go to an ICC meeting, or council can draft a letter to the county with a request.
So if you would allow me to say that it goes in a letter to the next council meeting, that way it would fast track it better than waiting for an ICC meeting. Is there any questions or discussion over the motion on the table? Councillor Caprero.
Just wondering, Mr. Kraus, should we also include maybe just a friendly amendment that we also reach out to the chamber and just make sure that they're also, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I can amend that to also reach out to the chamber. So with no further discussion, I'll call that motion to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So the next item of business is 8.2, emergency shelter discussion, supporting vulnerable people during extreme weather conditions. Mr. Kraus, did you want to give us a little bit of information that you gathered?
No, sure. So thank you, Your Worship. So this agenda item came from a discussion with the mayor and deputy mayor in reviewing the agenda last week. Just with the cold weather, what actions could the town take? The discussion went around what Edmonton does, where they opening up warming centers, not shelters per se, but just warming centers. And the mayor and deputy mayor just wanted to bring it forward for discussion. Is that something the town wants to entertain? Kind of following what Edmonton does. I think it's if they're 3 days consecutive minus 20, then they'll open up their some different facilities so people can warm up during those periods and overnight.
Thank you very much. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, I would like to see us pursue something like this. At our FCSS meeting last week, when we were in the middle of the cold snap, it was very clear that people were coming to the FCSS building to warm up, and they would provide them with hot chocolate and just a place to talk and warm up and showcase some of the programs that are available. But I do think that, this is a way that we can help our vulnerable citizens, and, it won't be an actual shelter, but it'll just be a warming facility that they can take advantage of when it's cold, like we have had. I would like to see us pursue something like this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson.
I think that one of the key items here is location. I think there was more turning out at the Lord's Food Bank this past than there was at the Tamarack, just because of accessibility. And that's where, as town facilities, we're kind of limited with what area of town. You know, we could open the rec center for example. I don't know that you'd be getting the people when it's that temperature coming from wherever they are, that distance. So I had a thought on, you know, perhaps there's some way we could do maybe a grant program or something to set it up somehow that, for instance, if the food bank chose to go back to do their program that they had, that we would be offering, I don't know what the number would be, but, you know, $500 a night or something to cover their expenses. I don't know if they would agree with that, but it was just kind of a thought, something for discussion.
Councillor Phillips.
I do like that idea. When I'd said, you know, we pursue the idea, I was thinking more partnering with an organization or a group or a nonprofit. Just, you know, it's, when it comes and it needs to be done, but it's nice to have a partner that we can rely on that will take on that. And with that, if no one decides to step up to the plate, then we'd have to look at other town facility options, but a partnership was would have been my first choice.
Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with both of you. I think that that's the way to go, a partnership. I'm just wondering, there's been a few people who have taken a lead role in this last cold spell, and if we should maybe not just discuss with them what they think the options are. They seem to be more at where the target is and to what they're seeing. You know, is financial support what they're looking for? Is it a location what they're looking for? You know, where it's located at, what we need to provide. Does it have to have beds, or what? You know, what are the requirements? And so my thinking is to move forward to possibly, rather than us making an uninformed decision, that we get somebody in who has a bit of a hands-on with what's happened or transpired in the last little while, and go there. So I think I mean, I've been getting text messages from a couple of people in our community, and I think maybe we should just hear them out and say, okay, what is it you're looking for? Is it money? Is it location? You know, and have you talked to the food bank? Are they willing to do that on a regular basis? Should they get money? I don't know. We just need to flush it out a bit more, I think, before we do anything. So my suggestion is that we talk to those people, possibly have them come to a council meeting and just give us an opinion.
I think that's a great idea, and with that follow-up, there was a letter sent yesterday from Cindy, the executive director of the women's shelter. So I think the policy I'd like to see is that the town seems to be the hub for trying to maybe get the information collected, and I have a policy that says at this temperature we initiate calling FCC and getting things going like that. And perhaps putting a budget item, but Cindy Easton's letter says that there's already a meeting scheduled, and it's similar to the one that we've had every year for the last 2 years or 3 years, and it's about housing and some of the problems and issues. And because all of the partners will already be at that meeting, I'm just wondering if that's the best, if maybe we all attend that meeting. Last year they talked about all their policies, their granting, their processes moving forward. But the year before that, they talked about shelter pods and the homeless situation. We definitely need to coordinate because, again, like yourself, I was receiving a number of phone calls, and I seem to be like, okay, yes, have you called the women's shelter? Like, have you called this? Like, we have all these groups, and we just need to have like an umbrella that connects us all together. And because the women's shelter's already taken the initiative to talk, maybe we could have something come out of that meeting. Counselor Hutchinson.
That's a good idea, but we also have to realize that it's the woman's shelter. It does not accommodate men. And that's a really, really large problem. If any of them, I mean, possibly would go to Red Deer. Otherwise, the women's shelter only covers that one area. And
So-
also,
But I just want to just clarify some information that's incorrect with your statement. They will help any men. They have a housing program, and they have a lot of programs offered to men. So in her letter, she clearly says that men are able to come there and they can't stay there, but they are allowed to access information from the women's shelter and some resources for housing and some other things. They will help men direct them, and they also have an initiative going through their housing to start a men's shelter. So they're not immune to the issues of men in our community. Councillor Hutchinson?
I wanted to make another point that extreme weather also includes heat, not just the cold. So there's two sides to it as well.
Councillor
Sorry,
Phillips?
just clarification, the meeting you're referring to is the Stone Soup meeting on March 21st?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Stone Soup for Housing includes men and women, and if you're familiar, did you go last year to the presentation? I think it was Michelle from the county and myself were the only two. So perhaps moving forward, we could all, it's an open invitation, doesn't cost anything to go to the Stone Soup for Housing and see what information comes out of that. It seems like the community gathered together, and then we could better find out what we need before going ahead with policies. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Caprero?
Thank you. And that's a good idea. I'll try to make that meeting if I can, but I do like Councillor Schipholt's idea. Still talking to the people that have been involved the last few days when it was really cold and finding out what they need, how we can best assist them. And then that could help us too with this other meeting here come March. But I think it would still be good to hear what the needs are. And then we have that information as well. So I would like to see something try to be organized where maybe they could come as a delegation or something just to find out exactly how we can best help.
Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, I like us having some extra information before going into that meeting. And also, I think we should reach out to the organizers of the Stone Soup committee, just to let them know that this is what we're thinking, so that when we show up for that meeting, they're not kind of taken aback or blindsided. They actually have maybe some ideas that we haven't thought of, and they can start thinking of that. So, yeah, I would like to reach out, as Councillor Schipholt said, to the groups that were doing it already, and then give the Stone Soup group a heads up that, at that meeting, we would like to discuss this and see what kind of options we can come up with.
Councillor Auld?
I agree with Councillor Schipholt, Councillor Phillips. I've been chatting back and forth with Sarah, who was a huge organizer for this event, and I want to just thank her very much for all the extra work she's done in organizing this. But I would like to send out a letter to Sarah and her team, as well as the Lord's Food Bank, get them guys have a discussion, and then come to council with their ideas again before we do the Stone Soup, just so we have some background information and exactly what they ran into and what their biggest concerns are, so we have that in the back of our heads as well.
I think that's a great idea. So from that, the ideas would be to send a letter to the Skateboard Park Association and the Lord's Food Bank. And the second part would be to reach out to Cindy Easton and the Stone Soup group and say that we would like to attend that with this in mind, because we're trying to develop some policies and we're gathering information so that we have some steps forward before we make any decisions. That's the two items out of that. Is there anything else? Did we want to wait for, do we want to respond to the 21st meeting and see, and maybe block that off and with agendas so we don't book things on that day so that we're able to attend that? Like get a get a proper calendar invite for that? Because that's what Cindy's letter, I'm sure anybody not get that letter? Yeah. So that would be the third thing, would be to get a proper invitation for council members so we can block and check our calendars. Counselor Phillips?
Yeah, if there's no further discussion, I was just prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we reach out to the Skate Park Society Food Bank to get information on what they did for this last cold snap, as well as let the Stone Soup group know that we plan on attending on March 21st. And to keep our, I guess we don't have to say to keep our schedule free for 21st, we'll just do that. Thank you.
Okay, so there's any further discussion on that motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So thank you very much. That concludes emergency shelter discussion. Next, we have correspondence for action, a joint letter from the Wild Rose School Division. I'm sorry, my computer is done. I didn't print off that one. I didn't have any notes. Mr. Kraus, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this letter stems from the joint meeting between the Wild Rose School Division and Clearwater Council and our council on mental health within the schools. The letter is asking for council's support to write a letter to the province supporting their letter for allocating Alberta Health Services dollars to the schools for students' health needs, specifically mental health.
Thank you very much. Councillor Phillips.
Definitely, I'm in support of this for sure. There's no secret that mental health issues have been on the steady rise ever since COVID, and the schools are definitely no stranger to this unfortunate trend. So I would say yes, we want to support this letter, and just from again, sitting on the FCSS board, this is one thing that the school boards are asking FCSS funding for, is for mental health issues, and there's just not enough funds to go around, so definitely I would be in support of this for sure. Anything we can do to help our youth in the community.
Thank you very much. I think we should also send a letter to MLA Nixon about our concerns for our community and that we are supporting that. So maybe even just if we copied him a letter of support so that he knows what we're needing and helping with. Councillor Chappelle.
I agree with Councillor Phillips and yourself. I think this letter has got a lot of information in it, and actually a lot of scary information when you start talking percentages of the amount of students that need help within the division. So I'm in full favor of getting this, supporting this letter and getting it out. They are copying it to a whole raft of people, including our MLA. I just think we should move forward, and I'd be prepared to make a motion that we support this letter and let the school division know we're in full support of what they're trying to accomplish here.
So is that your resolution
I
then?
will make that as a resolution, Your Worship, if you allow me, and that's that we accept this letter and reply with a letter of support to the school division. Now, do they want us to send a copy of the letter? Is that what they're looking for here?
So, Your Worship, just for clarification, they're asking this to be a joint letter. So they would sign, we would sign, so it would come from all the organizations that they list at the bottom of their letter.
So my resolution would be that we sign accordingly. They've got seven people who'll be signing it, so authorization that we sign it and support it on behalf of the town.
And Councillor Hutchinson, your light was on. Did you? Okay. So with that motion being on the table, is there any other further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. So just to clarify, the motion is that we participate with the joint letter with the school division and sign on behalf of council when it's ready. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So the next item of business, oh my gosh, I have a computer again, is a request to waive facility fees for the charity hockey game for 2024. And so that's the one that we do every year. Counselor Phillips, did you want to?
I believe we've done this in the past, if I'm correct, and I've been fortunate to be a volunteer in this
Event?
Yes, that's the word I'm trying to think. It's early in the morning, as Councillor Schiffel says. I've been fortunate to be part of this event, and it's very well done, and it's a very good thing for the community, and it's just, they're supporting the Rocky Health Foundation this year, so I would be definite in support of waiving the fees for this event. In fact, I would like to make a motion that
Excellent.
we waive the fees for this event for the RCMP Firefighters Charity Hockey Game.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is a letter from Mayor Beach to council. If you just bear with me till I find my copy, because my computer is still not happy. Does anybody have questions about the letter from the agenda? Councillor Ald.
I do have some questions, thank you. Just curious what your time frame and parameters around having lawyers, our town lawyers, involved in attending our council meetings. That would come at a significant cost to the ratepayers of Rocky. Is there, I'm just trying to get some background as to why we would need a lawyer at our meetings.
Okay, so you have a couple of questions there. You want to know what is the time frame and what was the other word?
What is the time frame as far as how, like, would it be for 6 months? Would it be the remainder of the year or the term? And what would be the benefit of having that?
So what is the time frame and period of time required? And the second question is, what is the benefit? Or why is it necessary?
Either or, which in my mind, they're kind of the same question.
Thank you very much for your question. So I think I could answer that. So the time period, I don't know how long it would be necessary for. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be our legal counsel, but it does have to be someone, a third party that would fall into the ability to keep things confidential and moderate if there's issue on points of parliamentary procedure, and ensure so that's what the time period question would be. So what is the benefit? I think the benefit is going to be, well, I'll answer what is the reason first. So the reason is that I feel that during closed council sessions, specifically when we're having inter-council discussions with no agenda item, like no business item, that decorum seems to go sideways. It's very stressful on all of the council members. There's a lot of anxiety I feel there's a lot of anxiety for myself to chair a meeting when I know that we're gonna have a 17.1 on the meeting, because that doesn't have like a business result required for it. So like, for example, today, if you look at our agenda item, there's a 17.1. And there's no documentation or information required. It's not necessarily, it's not that it's not an agenda item, but it's usually just a conversation we have amongst each other. And so I find those conversations have not been beneficial. I feel that the decorum has been lost. And I will not participate in a meeting where I am getting yelled at or swore at, or I am being called names or accused of grievous things that are inaccurate and untrue without any, I think that parliamentary procedure, when I try to call a recess or call a vote so that we can leave closed session to have a recess, there's no reason that we can't have a recess when things get heated. It's part of Robert's Rules of Order that a recess can be called at any time. And if you talk to people who are familiar, that's so that someone doesn't go to the washroom in their pants usually, or so that we can have a break so that cooler heads could prevail. And so those are some of the reasons that I feel that closed session has not been working well. And I will not be under scrutiny where I have 4 or 5 people, including the CAO, criticize me and make inaccurate statements about me because they're not happy with something I've said or done. So that's the reason, and the benefit would be that we can proceed with a more healthier council and we can focus on the business at hand rather than arguing with each other in closed session. Councillor Auld still has his light on. Did you have a follow-up to that? And then I'll go to Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I definitely do. Just in regards to a couple of your comments, and relating back to the letter, and you were talking about incorrect statements, incorrect comments, things that aren't quite true. In your letter, you said that you were continued to be in the town office, doing your duties. During the time frame when you were off, were you in the town office on a regular basis and participating in your regular duties?
I'm sorry, are you asking me that if I was participating in my regular duties while I was on a leave of absence?
I'm asking you to clarify in your letter. It said during the time frame in question, I was still in the office on a regular basis. That's what I want clarity on. Were you in the office
Okay, so
on a regular basis?
So since I came back from my leave of absence, I was in the office on a regular basis.
And that's right, when you come back, but in the letter at the bottom, from the December 19th letter from Councillor Capero, you stated, during the time frame in question, I was still in the office on a regular basis.
So I believe that my lawyer wrote this letter on my behalf, and she means since I came back. So it ends my leave of absence. And while I was on leave, I did have regular interaction with people. I live here, I'm in the community all the time. People still came up to me with things. And so my remuneration moving forward should not be impacted.
Right, so that's the time frame in question.
So this is a different question than the first question. This is about paragraph 2.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So can you ask me your question again? So I think I've clarified that statement. It's since my leave of absence ended.
That's not what the letter says. It says from Councillor Capero's letter on December 19th that you were in the town office on a regular basis, and that for that reason your remuneration should not have been impacted.
Oh, I see. Well, I was still an elected official, and I still lived in the community, and I was on a leave of absence. So there's no trigger to change any of that. So I think she's So I'm sorry that there's some confusion about that statement. I can correct that now, that was after I came back.
Well, this is where our questions come into play, and we have, trying to get clarity, and this is written by a lawyer, it should be accurate. It's just another example of where we question comments and actions. This is written by a lawyer and signed by you, and it states specifically that you were in the town office on a regular basis, and therefore your remuneration should be impacted. I really don't care to discuss your remuneration, it doesn't matter to me. But the facts in the letter are not correct.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, did you want to make a statement now?
I wanted to go back to the comments that you previously made in response to Councillor Ald's question. And all the comments that you made, I believe, right, that in itself, you've just brought in closed session items out to the public, which, in my opinion, is that not, or I'm going to ask the question, is that not a breach of the code of conduct with what you just did here with the comments that you made?
I haven't talked about any.
Well, you
I
state
feel,
that,
I feel that comments made towards me are not,
and having said that, you're insinuating that that's what happened in closed session. So I'm wondering, where is the line drawn with closed session items and public items? Because I feel that you're bringing closed session item to the public, which is a breach of the code of conduct.
do you have any other questions or further comments? Did you want clarification from Mr. Kraus about the code of conduct?
I don't think that I need clarification on the code of conduct. I agree with Councillor Ald. This letter was definitely written in and interpreted by, I think, everybody that I've known that's read this letter, that stating that you were in the office while you were on your leave. And when we go back to the duties and what Deputy Mayor Capero had to fulfill, you definitely weren't fulfilling your duty. And that is why I had mentioned about bringing forward a policy on leave of absence, because we need clarity, and whether the remuneration happens when someone takes a leave, as well as all the other little things. We were left in the dark. All we knew was one original email from you. So, yeah.
Councillor Chappelle.
Your worship, if you can, to Mr. Kraus. So your question is a third party to be present for in-camera meetings.
Yes.
And so to Mr. Kraus, is this a common practice? Has it happened? Are you aware of it happening? In this case, you've indicated it doesn't have to be a lawyer, or is there somebody out there who could participate as a third party that you're aware of or seen, or is this something that's totally impossible to happen, can happen, might happen? Tell me what the boundaries look like, if any, or if you even want to answer that question, I guess.
It's up to council who's in closed session. That is entirely up to council.
Sorry, Councillor Chappelle.
So the original no that you said, was that no to not answering the question, or no that you've never seen
No,
anybody
originally I
that
did not want to answer the question, so I'm just putting it back on council. So I have never heard of a facilitator for a council in a closed session or during meetings. So it has not been my experience anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. So I've had the fortunate of being part of last council and being part of this council. Going into closed session last council, it wasn't always roses and puppy dogs in closed session. There was differences, there was disagreements, and moved on. Simple as that. And I'm suggesting that we should do the same here, even though we have difference of opinions, difference in agreements, differences of everything. in the end of the day, we just need to move on. From my point of view, asking for legal counsel to be part of council meetings and closed sessions, just doing some quick math on that, I mean, we're talking about $50,000 to $100,000 probably per year of legal fees to have that happen. I'm definitely not in favor of spending Rocky taxpayers' money in the amount of $50,000 to $100,000 just to have someone in our council meetings. That's just my 2 cents. I think, you know what, having discussion and having differences of opinion, that's sometimes healthy, and it's good to have debate. And I think at the end of the day, we just need to get over it and move on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillips. So I see no further questions or comments, so I'll make my last statement. I do not feel comfortable going to closed session due to previous closed session instances. I will not be abused verbally, and I don't feel comfortable without having someone ensure that there's decorum in closed sessions. So we can, you know, I don't mind discussing actual agenda items for the town business, but I am not going to be discussing the issues that council members have with myself or anyone else, because I feel that's not productive to our council or to any of our relationships. Oh, Councillor Hutchinson, did you have something else to add?
I just want to make a comment that for you to state that you're being abused verbally is quite a bold statement. And I don't think that, again, the picture is being painted from one side. And I'm not going to get into specifics, but I would like to see that comment retracted, because I believe that that is your opinion, and it's not necessarily what's happening.
So it's how I feel. I feel that way, and I'm allowed to have whatever feeling I feel like. That's why I said I feel that way. So I don't think we're going to get anything further done from the letter. I just wanted to have a discussion. I feel that, like, for example, on this agenda, our advice from officials, unless it's specific about a item that needs to be in FOIP, when Mr. Kraus gives his CAO dialogue, I think that could be done in open session, just like normally, unless it's something to do with legal, land, or agreements. I'm fully prepared to discuss 14.2 and 14.3, but unless 14.4 specifically has to do with something other than just us having a discussion, I will not be, I don't feel that that's necessary. And so,
Mayor, just for clarification, so 14.2 CAO dialogue is a request of council. It's actually in the procedural bylaw now.
Yes.
That it happens, and it's an update on the organization to council.
yes, so I'm asking that that be changed back to the way it was before, so that we have less time in closed session and we're more transparent with our business.
And that would be up to council to amend the procedural bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Chappelle.
So 14.2, which is the CEO dialogue, I think that we've made significant strides in understanding more about our community by having it in camera. It's in a procedure bylaw. I think it should remain that way. I think that's advantageous to the betterment of our community long term. The other two items on there, again, I'm not 100% sure what they are, but in terms of 14.2, thank you, Mr. Cross, for clarifying that. I think that needs to to remain there. You know, I would not be prepared to change our procedural bylaw to bring it out. We worked at putting it there for a reason, and it's only been there for a while, and anyway, that's where it's at. I think moving forward on your letters and whatever happens, as a go-forward point, it may be worthy of us to speak to municipal affairs to say, is this a process that can happen? And it may be a letter to municipal affairs and get a response to that from them. If Mr. Kraus has never seen it happen, maybe it's something that can't happen. We maybe are looking for something that's impossible, but I think that we need to take it beyond this table to get an answer for that. So my recommendation is that we would send a letter to municipal affairs saying, this has been a request. Is it something that's happened? How does it happen? What do we do to, if in fact we were to do it? And just get a response back from them. So to me, that'd be a go forward point, because I think that otherwise you're right, we're not gonna go anywhere. How do we go someplace? Let's see if it's even a possibility to do, because maybe it's not. So I would, and maybe it's through our legal counsel we asked that question, I don't know. I'm not sure which way to go, whether it be through municipal affairs or legal counsel, but I think we need to somehow get a period at the end of that statement, and we need to move forward.
I would be fine with that letter. Thank you very much. Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Ald.
Thank you. Again, I'm not comfortable with spending that amount of money, regardless of whether we were allowed to do it or not, through municipal affairs. It is not a good use of funds from our community. So I would be willing to just make a motion that we accept this letter for information and carry on.
Councillor Chappelle to the
Thank you,
motion
Your
on the
Worship.
table.
To Councillor Ald, I guess I'd speak against that motion, because I think that we need to somehow draw a conclusion, and the assumptions we're making here is it's gonna cost us money, and I think that's an assumption that we need to wait until it doesn't cost us anything to write a letter to either our legal counsel and or municipal affairs to see if it's even a possibility. Maybe municipal affairs has that kind of person in their arsenal already, that they can provide. We don't know that. So I think before we make any financial assumptions, we need to find out what processes are available to us, if any at all, or if this request is even legitimate. So I think we start baby steps first, and that's to write a letter. So I would speak against your motion of accepting this as information.
Regardless of whether we can or we can't, it is gonna come at a cost, a significant cost. Lawyers are expensive, mediators are expensive. We're not gonna have the government come in here and do it for nothing. It's not gonna happen.
So-
I'm still willing to go ahead with my motion.
No problem. The motion on the table is we're allowed to have discussion over it. So there is no time period or time frame for how long this would last. So the assumption that it would cost $50,000 to $100,000 for 2 or 3 meetings seems a little bit presumptuous. And if we've all taken a number of reminders of, how to get along and things like that. And I just think that, we turned down the money that we would have paid to Mr. Cuff to ensure that we were working towards a future of beneficial relationships. And I feel that, coulda, shoulda, woulda, moving forward, this is just something that will help us maintain some decorum and improve our relationships coming out of closed session. So, with that being said, the motion on the table is to accept for information. I'm assuming that you're not open to any amendments on that motion, Councillor Ald?
Well, in your letter, it says all future council meetings. Very specific, including in-camera sessions. And I specifically asked earlier, time frame, and you had no time frame in mind at that point. So, no, I'm not going to change my motion.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions or comments or discussion at the motion on the table? Counselor Phillips?
Yes, thank you. And that's, just in reading this letter, that's what I'm going on, is I read the all future council meetings and in camera sessions, that's where I came up with this quick math on the $50,000 to $100,000, because it, you know, we can have 4-hour council meetings, and I'm not sure what our legal counsel is. I'm assuming it's probably in the $600,000 to $700,000 an hour range. The money will add up fast, so
I think your numbers are off a little bit.
maybe higher. But for sure,
Per,
it's
per hour? You
per
said
hour.
$600,000 per hour.
$600. I stand corrected.
That's
Not
why we both
600,000.
started laughing, because
Yeah.
you
600,
misspoke.
yeah. Just in reading the letter, I'm not prepared to move forward based on this, so I would be in support of the motion.
Okay, so there's no further discussion on the motion. We'll call that to vote. All in favor of Counselor Ald's motion to accept for information? And those opposed? And that's carried. So, I would, like to make motion that, no, I'm fine. We can move forward in the, no, I would like to make a motion. Mr. Counselor Chappelle, did you want to make a motion about your letter to municipal affairs and the lawyer at this time?
I want to be clear first.
So we've accepted the letter for information, but we can still make other resolutions. Correct, Mr. Kraus?
Your worship, you would have to revisit the motion that just, or the resolution that just passed, because it's counterintuitive.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Okay, so moving forward on the agenda, we have correspondence from information, 10.1 to 10.3. Does anybody want to highlight any of those items? Counselor Phillips, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll just make a motion to accept items 10.1 through 10.3 as information.
Thank you very much. Seeing there's no further discussion with that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So our action list for today, Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. So for the outstanding action items, so Football Association, we are still waiting to hear back from them to provide a more detailed budget for council to review. The rental rates at the post house, those have been scheduled for the March GPC meeting for council. Benefits, pardon?
I'm sorry, I did have a question about post house rates. Did we ever have a survey about rental rates in our area done? Have you ever had any information?
Your worship, the province actually does that survey. We participate annually, and I'm sure they contact all the rental unit owners, and they produce that report annually, so.
Did that gentleman from the newspaper ever contact Ms. Button again about our rates in our community?
No.
No,
But
okay.
there was an article in the Mountaineer, written by that gentleman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and showed a graph where the 2-bedroom suites, I think it was 2-bedroom suites, the percentage of increase in Rocky Mountain House was right near the top, and I don't know where he's getting his data from.
Okay,
So,
okay. I was just wondering if we had any reports from the province when you talked about our own rates.
not-
Okay. Thank you.
So the next one, Councilor Chipple asked for a comparable benefits for the municipalities. That is scheduled for the February GPC meeting. Next one is that council instruct administration to draft a policy regarding grants and transfers. That is scheduled for the March. Actually, it's going to be ready for the February because that policy is drafted right now for council. So we'll put it on the February GPC meeting for council's consideration. And the last one is the waste bylaw and review if there's conflicting articles or sections in it from Mr. Tony Brooks. And that will be coming to council in February at the GPC meeting.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions about the action list? Would anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the action list from January 16th, 2024 as information.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further discussion on that motion, I call that motion to a vote. All in favor of that motion, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Do we have any administrative inquiries today? Councillor Chappelle.
Your worship, if I can, please. Lawyers seem to be a topic of issue today. So if I can to Mr. Kraus, and that is, do we have a policy about what we can use lawyers for? And so in terms of individuals, what is the determination of whether in fact, so if some of us are, for example, served around the table and some of us are not, do those people who are served use the town lawyer or not? What's the policy on that? And how do we determine when in fact the town lawyer is used? Or can I phone a town lawyer at any given time and say, I got a question for you? What is our policy on that? Do we have a policy?
Broad question. Thank you, Ms. Button. We don't have a policy. We are drafting one because of the recent events. It's called an indemnification policy that we'll be bringing to council. When a member of council or a member of administration is served, for example, whether the municipality takes on that cost or not. So that'll be coming to council for review February or March. Our first step in being served is we send it to our insurance company. And they determine whether it falls within their insurance policy and they take it on. If they don't, then it needs to come back to council for consideration if it's for against an individual is what the process we would follow now. The second part of your question was, can any councillor phone our legal counsel for advice? And the answer is actually no. You would need to get approval from council to get a legal opinion on a matter. So it would be a council decision. And the only real reason for that is when council needs to be privy to, all of council needs to be privy to the information. That's right in the Municipal Government Act. Second, there's cost involved, so council needs to weigh the cost.
Thank you so much.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did well. Because it is a question that, sometimes I have a question, how do you deal with something? And so I guess if I have that question, and if I'm looking for legal advice, the two options, either I go out and pay for my own legal advice on that subject, or I bring it to council and say, will you allow me to speak to our legal counsel? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, before, if you want to talk to our legal counsel, it needs to be a decision of council as a whole.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have another question today?
yeah.
Yes, okay. Just checking. So you're,
So we just went through our list of action items, and I'm looking at reading stuff that comes on the Worthy internet now and again. That's sort of like, how that goes. Anyway, question about a CAO bylaw. Should that be on our action list that we create that, or where's that at?
Yeah, so, your worship, to Councilor Shipple, so we do have a CAO bylaw. You're required under the Municipal Government Act to have a bylaw to appoint a CAO. The current bylaw was adopted in 2009, I believe. Am I correct there, Ms. Breeze? And it's old, but it's still in place. But if council wants that reviewed, and updated, we could bring it back. So that would be just a motion of council that the administration bring back a draft CAO bylaw for council's review. And if council adopts that new bylaw, it would rescind the 2009 one that's still in effect.
At what point can we make that motion? Does that have to be a notice of motion, or how do we?
I think if council wants to do that, they could do a motion right now out of the question.
Okay, I'd be prepared to make that motion that we update our CAO bylaw and bring it back to us at whenever, within the next couple months.
We could probably bring it back for the February GPC meeting.
Okay. Do you have a date on that?
That's the 3rd,
3rd of
or
February?
the,
No.
sorry. I'll give you the exact date. The 1st is
Okay, my motion will read the
it's the
second Tuesday.
13th.
No, it won't.
It's the 13th
The 13th,
of
okay.
February.
Okay, so my motion would be that we review the CAO bylaw and bring an updated version back for the February 13th meeting.
Okay, so is there any discussion on that motion? Counselor Ald?
I'm just curious, Councillor Schipple, is there something in the old one that you're concerned about, or just to bring it back for review? I'm not sure. Is there something you'd like to see added to it that they can?
All of the above. I just think that if it's from 2009, it likely has some holes in it that need to be changed or things that need to be said. I mean, our bylaws are pretty much up to date all through the process. Mr. Kraus has done a good job of doing that. It seems kind of ironic that one bylaw would be 15 years old. So I just think that it's just a matter of principle and just to make it updated. Do I have any, I guess to answer your question, do I have concerns with the old one? The old one's a one-pager. It's got about 3 lines in it, so there's not much to have a concern about in it other than Mr. Kraus is the CAO. So.
Okay, so any further discussion on the motion on the table? With that being said, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And those opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So that, do we have any other administrative inquiries?
Oh, yeah.
Counselor Chappelle?
Sorry.
No, that's perfect.
Your worship, if I could. Again, this is, again, according to the powers of being on the internet who bring up things, drug and alcohol policy. Is there a drug and alcohol policy for the staff, and does it relate to council as well, or is it, or do we even have a policy relative to that anywhere?
So alcohol is mentioned in 2 different policy, one in the travel and expense policy where it's not a permitted expense.
Oh, darn.
And the second one is in our personnel policy, and it relates to staff being intoxicated while at work. So that's the only 2 places that alcohol is mentioned in our policy.
Do you, as our CAO, feel that that's adequate, or do you think that those areas need to be revisited?
For administration, I think that is adequate. I can only answer on the administrative side.
Which policy would it fall under if it covered council members? There's nothing mentioned in code of conduct, would it be?
No, there's nothing mentioned in the code of conduct, there's nothing mentioned in the remuneration, and I'd say in the travel and expense policy is the only one that actually applies to council. So if you wanted something to address council, then I would need direction to put it either in policy or.
Your light's off.
I'm okay, I was just curious, because again, you know, where the electronic media stuff seems to be battering around stuff, and I just was wondering if in fact we have something or don't. So, thank you for that, appreciate that.
If a staff member was drinking alcohol at work, but they weren't intoxicated, is the personnel policy cover that? Just for staff?
Your worship, I think, and I would have to review the personnel policy for this specific, so I don't want to speculate here, but I'm pretty sure it just refers to intoxication at work.
Thank you very much. Is there any other administrative inquiries today? Seeing none, do we have any notices of motion? Seeing none, I'd like to take a 10-minute brief recess before we go into closed session. So we're recessed for 10 minutes. missing someone. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Town of Rocky Mountain House Council meeting for January 16th, 2024. And so we are now at 14 for the closed session. And I just want to say my reservations about going into closed session and hope that we can all maintain decorum. So I'm looking for a motion to enter closed session. Councillor Chappelle.
Also make a motion that we move into closed session.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion and that.
Good afternoon. So we are back from closed session, and so we do have a motion coming out of it, so I will turn that to Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to have the Director of Corporate Services proceed with the recommendation from closed session.
Thank you for your motion. Call that to a vote. Those in favor? And none opposed, and that is carried. That concludes our meeting for today, so I will go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.